Coming up on this Tuesday edition of Daybreak, in a momentous deal, South Korea and China have agreed on a free trade agreement that aims to remove most barriers to trade between the two countries. The leaders of China and Japan hold one-on-one talks for the first time since they took office as Beijing and Tokyo seek to end their ongoing rows over history and territory. Plus, South Korea launches its largest ever annual military exercise to prepare against regional security threats and North Korean provocations. Daybreak begins now. Hello and thanks for joining us. To our viewers around the world, it's 6 a.m. on Tuesday, November 11th here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broome and you're tuned in to Daybreak. And we start with that momentous news that South Korea and China have ended their 2.5 years of free trade negotiations. The announcement came during face-to-face talks between President Park Geun-hye and Chinese leader Xi Jinping ahead of the official opening of the APEC summit in the Chinese capital. The two leaders also discussed the possibility of holding a three-way foreign ministers meeting with Japan. Our Chae-san reports from Beijing.
The leaders of Korea and China meeting on the sidelines of the APEC summit in Beijing made a long-awaited announcement regarding their bilateral free trade agreement.
이 한중 FTA가 2년여간의 협상 끝에 드디어 핵심 사안에 합의해서 오늘 정상회담을 계기로 협상이 실질적 타결되었음을 발표하게 돼서 기쁘게 생각합니다.
The two presidents then talked about how the Korea-China FTA will be welcomed by the global economy, currently experiencing a delayed recovery and low growth.
I hope that the two sides will keep pushing for continuous and in-depth development in bilateral exchanges and cooperation.
Seoul and Beijing say they will remove tariffs on more than 90% of previously agreed products over the next 20 years. And rice, a super sensitive product for Korean farmers, has been excluded altogether. Korea's presidential office says compared to all the bilateral FTAs it has with other countries, this one contains fewer agricultural products subject to tariff removal. Shifting gears to regional security, Presidents Park and Xi agreed that they should look into a tripartite foreign ministers meeting with Japan before the year's end. Historical and territorial differences in Northeast Asia have soured ties and at times caused tensions. On North Korea, Beijing said it clearly opposes Pyongyang's nuclear development program and that it abides by UN Security Council resolutions against the regime. The two presidents then expressed the need to seek creative and diverse ways to bring North Korea back to the six-nation denuclearization talks. Choi Yoo-sun, Arirang News, Beijing.
And later on Monday at the APEC gala dinner, President Park was seated next to Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Now, her office said the two leaders discussed a range of issues and agreed to encourage officials involved in high-level talks to make progress resolving Japan's wartime sexual enslavement of Korean women. With Tokyo still refusing to make amends for its past wrongdoings, though, President Park is yet to hold a one-on-one summit meeting with Abe. Now, going back to the Korea-China FTA now, and with this latest free trade pact, it's expected to give the Korean economy a massive boost, as it'll give local companies a far deeper access into the gigantic Chinese market. Let's take a look at some of the finer points of this landmark deal. Our Song Ji-sun has this report.
Korea has become the first country among the world's top 10 trading nations to seal free trade deals with the U.S., the European Union, and now China. China is Korea's biggest trading partner, accounting for 1/5 of total trade volume, and research institutes suggest Korea's GDP will expand by 1 to 2% after the free trade deal goes into effect. Korean businesses would also enjoy tariff reductions of an estimated $5.4 billion a year.
We expect to accelerate entry into China's consumer goods and domestic markets instead of Korean conglomerates who have already globalized. We helped open the Chinese market for Korea's small and mid-sized businesses and the agro-fisheries industries.
With a tariff reduction, Korean clothing, electronics, and sporting goods companies are expected to gain a competitive edge in pricing, as are the traditional export engines like steel and petrochemicals. Following the agreement, Seoul aims to boost its bilateral trade volume between the two countries to $300 billion next year, helping to eventually achieve a government goal of topping GDP per capita of $30,000. Seoul put protecting the agriculture sector as its first priority, excluding rice, the country's most sensitive item, along with more than 600 other major agriculture, livestock, and fisheries products. That's equivalent to 30% of all items in the sector imported from China in terms of amount, which is the highest level of exemption in any free trade deal Seoul has already signed. 송지선, Arirang News.
Now, following the Korea-China summit, President Park met with the APEC Business Advisory Council, where she talked about Seoul's supportive measures for Korea's small and mid-sized firms, stressing that an economy can gain vitality when a nation's SMEs are the central growth engine. The Korean president introduced her government's efforts to ensure that they can bring in capital and manage operations with only creative ideas and technologies. When asked about food and energy security, President Park mentioned private entities investing more into applying IT to agricultural production and governments opening up their energy and resources markets. Now, the leaders of China and Japan have met for formal talks for the first time since they took office, and it's hoped that this meeting on the sidelines of the APEC summit in Beijing on Monday will potentially be the breakthrough needed to end the bitter row between Asia's biggest economies over a range of historical and territorial issues. Our Hwang Sang-hee reports.
Breaching normal protocol, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe was the one to greet the stony-faced Chinese President Xi Jinping as he made his way in for their ice-breaking chat on Monday. The 30-minute meeting held on the sidelines of the APEC summit in Beijing came at the request of Japan and was their first face-to-face talk since both leaders took power in late 2012. Differences over issues dating back to wartime and competing claims to a group of islets in the East China Sea have kept the two sides apart. In a statement, the Chinese Foreign Ministry said she told Abe it's clear who is at fault for their poor relations and asked Tokyo to do more things that help enhance the mutual trust between Japan and its neighboring countries. Speaking to reporters, Abe called the meeting a first step toward improving their relationship and creating mutually beneficial strategic ties. Prime Minister Abe said the two sides agreed to set up a hotline to prevent maritime clashes, expressing hopes that they will soon start administrative work to implement the system. While no groundbreaking deal was reached, experts say the handshake between the leaders of China and Japan could mark a turning point, calling the simple fact that they met significant. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
And staying with the APEC summit in Beijing, and analysts say that China, as the host nation, is using this grand opportunity to try and promote itself as the key regional power in the Asia-Pacific region, on not only the economic but also on the diplomatic front. Our Ji Min-gil reports.
Chinese President Xi Jinping has laid out his vision to lead the Asia-Pacific region, both economically and diplomatically. At the top of Beijing's agenda for this week's APEC summit is a free trade area of the Asia-Pacific, or FTAAP. It's part of China's vision to consolidate and simplify the numerous free trade agreements within the region. China hopes to use this week's APEC summit as a venue to study and discuss the costs and benefits of the FTAAP, and would like to see it mentioned in the final draft of the summit's communique. Some Chinese experts view the FTAAP as a strategic move to counter the US-led 12-Nation Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP, which excludes China. Washington has made implementation of the TPP a priority in expanding trade in the region. On top of the FTAAP, China will also be pushing its vision to set up the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, which has been likened to China's version of the International Monetary Fund. The AIIB, to be established by the end of next year, will help finance infrastructure development in the Asia-Pacific region, with an authorized capital of $100 billion. On the diplomatic side, China will be seeking to ease concerns about its rise, particularly with it entangled in a number of territorial disputes in the East and South China Seas and historical tensions with neighboring countries. While trying to ease those tensions, Chinese President Xi and those close to him will also present the case that they are a viable alternative and counterbalance to the United States, which has actively been trying to pivot to Asia. 김영길, Arirang News.
We start before the sun rises to bring you the latest stories out of Korea. We also lead the way with important global coverage. Stay on the pulse of what is happening with Daybreak.
Now, the families of the victims of April's ferry disaster are set to announce their plans to call off underwater search operations for the 9 victims who remain missing. They'll hold a press conference later this Tuesday morning at Jindo to spell out their wishes. Jindo is the closest land point to where the ferry went down, and it's where the families of the missing have been camped out waiting for news about their loved ones. It's reported that the families have now agreed to call a halt to search operations inside the ferry. Relatives had hoped more bodies would be retrieved after the body of a female student was recovered in October. Her body was the first to be discovered at the disaster site in more than 100 days. The families have reportedly agreed that search operations are now too difficult, with parts of the hull collapsing and water temperatures dropping rapidly. They're expected to request a new set of measures to find their missing relatives. The South Korean military has begun its near 2-week-long annual war exercise to prepare against possible North Korean provocations. Officials say this year's Hoguk exercise is focused on ways to establish the defense capabilities to deal with potentially an all-out war. Our Kim Ya-bin reports.
South Korea began its annual Hoguk defense exercise on Monday, with a record number of personnel from all branches of the military taking part. The goal, according to a statement from the Joint Chiefs of Staff, is to bolster South Korea's defense posture against potential threats to regional stability, including those coming from North Korea. The 2 weeks of drills consist of numerous maneuvers, such as joint landing and maritime infiltration defense drills. More than 330,000 military personnel are taking part in the exercise, making it the largest ever Hoguk drill since the first one was staged in 1996. In past years, around 80,000 troops were involved. Over 23,000 fighting and transport vehicles are being used, along with 60 vessels and dozens of aircraft. An officer from the Joint Chiefs of Staff says the beefed-up exercises are in direct response to North Korea's recent provocations. On Friday, Pyongyang slammed South Korea for the planned drill, calling it practice for an invasion. In response, South Korean Defense Ministry spokesman Kim Min-suk stressed that the Hoguk drill has been conducted annually since 1996 to boost preparedness and coordination among the branches of the military. Meanwhile, the South Korean military says it fired 20 warning shots across its border with the North on Monday morning. This after around 10 North Korean soldiers approached the military demarcation line near Paju, north of Seoul. The North military did not shoot back and retreated in the afternoon. Kim Ya-bin, Arirang News.
Now, the new U.S. ambassador to Korea is calling for even closer bilateral cooperation between Seoul and Washington. Meeting with South Korea's Unification Minister Ryu Kil-jae on Monday, Mark Lippert said the United States Embassy in Seoul is an important place for President Barack Obama. Lippert added that he will focus on coordinating the policies of the Obama and Park administrations. In response, the South Korean minister said he hoped to further boost cooperation, especially regarding North Korea-related policies. Mark Lippert arrived in Seoul late last month to start his new role as Washington's envoy to South Korea, replacing the previous ambassador, Sung Kim. Time now for a look through the global headlines we're following on this Tuesday morning here in Seoul. For that, we turn to Eunice Kim, standing by at the news center. Good morning, Eunice.
Good morning to you, Mark. Another attack has struck a school in Nigeria, this time a boys' school, killing at least 47 people and wounding 79 others. The blast tore through an assembly hall at the Government Science Secondary School in the northeastern town of Potiskum, marking the 7th attack on a school this year. Police say the suicide bomber, who was dressed as a student, was among the 47 killed. Boko Haram is suspected to be behind this strike. The extremist group has targeted schools in its 5-year insurrection to build what it views as an Islamic state, in which boys receive only Islamic education and girls do not attend school. In reaction to the latest deadly attack, Yobe State's governor has closed all public schools near Potiskum and called on the central government to stop the escalating violence. And in heightened tensions between Israelis and Palestinians, separate attacks in Tel Aviv and the West Bank have claimed the lives of 2 Israelis. Both incidents has been described as terrorist attacks. A 26-year-old Israeli woman was stabbed to death in the occupied West Bank near a Jewish settlement. The attacker was shot by a security guard. This as hours earlier, another knife attack targeted a soldier in Tel Aviv. That soldier later died of his wounds. The U.S. Central Command has said that it launched a barrage of airstrikes against the Islamic State group over the weekend, 23 in Syria and 18 in Iraq. It said 13 were targeted near Syria's border town of Kobani, while in Iraq, 7 strikes hit Beijing. Others were in or near Fallujah, Mosul, Al-Qaim, and Haditha, among others. The official start of winter may still be weeks away, but much of the United States will feel the chill of the season this week, particularly in the country's east. Up to 60 centimeters of snow is forecast from the Dakotas to northern Wisconsin to upper Michigan, affected by a low pressure system coming out of the northern Rockies. Cold air is forecast to cover most of the country by Friday, the earliest the U.S. has seen since the 1990s. The Twin Cities is forecast to see as much as 30 meters of the white stuff into Tuesday morning.
And a good Tuesday morning to you all as we kick things off with Game 5 of the 2014 Korean series between the Samsung Lions and the Nexen Heroes, who went into the series tied 2-2 in the best-of-7 series. So let's take a look at the highlights from Jamsil Stadium. Of course, going to the game here, blanks across the board until the 6th inning. Seok Chang, RBI single to right. Park Hondo scores, and it's 1-0 Samsung. Bottom of the 8th inning, bases loaded, no one out. Park Sung-min pops out, and it's 1 out. Next batter, Park Hae-min chops one to first base here, and the force at home, and it's 2 outs. Next batter, Lee Hung-myung grounds out to second, and still 1-0 Nexen. But the bottom of the 9th inning, man on first and third, 2 outs for Choi Young-woo. That's a fair ball down the right field line. One man scores. Kim Hong-gon rounds third, and the play at the plate is safe, and the Samsung Lions win this one 2-1 and take a 3-2 series lead. And now with that staying in baseball, for all you MLB fans in the nation, good news as one of the biggest names in Major League history will arrive in Korea later today. Now arriving at the Incheon International Airport later this morning will be Major League Baseball's career saves leader Mariano Rivera. The legendary closer will be in Korea and will leave on Saturday as a global ambassador for a sound system company. He plans to visit various tour sites and hold baseball clinics as part of his busy schedule. Now, Rivera, known for his devastating cutter, earned a record 652 saves and 5 World Series titles, all with the New York Yankees. And now shifting over to the 2014-2015 ISU Short Track World Cup, where 17-year-old Shim Seok-hee continues her dominance as she won her 3rd gold medal at the event as she won the 1,500-meter and the 3,000-meter relay gold after claiming the top podium spot at the 1,000-meter event the day before. And now with that, staying on ice, but over to figure skating now. Russia's Adelina Sotnikova, who won the much-talked-about gold medal during the Sochi Winter Games earlier this year, hasn't competed internationally since then. And it seems like that's going to be the case for the rest of the year. Now, with a Grand Prix event coming up on the 14th, the Russian figure skater has been ruled out for 3 weeks after re-injuring her leg during training. Now, she expressed her disappointment on her SNS page as reports also state that she might be out for the rest of the year due to the cast on her leg. And now finishing things off in football, the Korean national football team has left to the Middle East on Monday in preparations for their November friendlies. With head coach Uli Stilicke preparing for the Asian Cup in January, the team is set to face off against Jordan on the 14th and Iran on the 18th, both, of course, away matches. The 60-year-old put together a 22-man roster, which includes 7 players based in Europe, 6 in the Middle East, 3 in Japan, 2 in China, and 4 others currently playing domestically in the K-League Classic. Now, with Lee Dong-guk and Kim Shin-wook out with injuries, manager Stilicke will work with a limited number of strikers as Park Ji-young hopes to make the best of his second chance with the national team. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning. Well, it's another chilly morning we are waking up to. Lows have dropped to 5 here in Seoul, but it feels colder than the actual temperatures this morning. But highs will get up to relatively mild side, leading to a big temperature gaps. And high pressure front will continue to give us lots of sunshine for the morning hours. Then the cloud will move into the peninsula, and it's going to be a mostly to partly sunny day in the afternoon. Also, sporadic showers could be seen in Seoul and the surrounding areas overnight. With that in mind, let's take a closer look at the readings for today. The daily low in Seoul started out at 5, then the daytime high in the capital and Gwangju will peak at 15, while Daegu and Busan will rise to 17 and 19 respectively. Now let's see how other regions are looking. Jeju Island and Daejeon will be getting up to 16 and 15 later on, and Dokdo should see a highs of 16 as well, while Mount Keungang tops out at 7. Well, it seems like today could be the last day to enjoy the autumn colors before it all falls down or it gets too chilly in the afternoon. That's all for Korea, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's going to do it from us for now. Korea Today is coming up at the top of the hour at 7 a.m. Korea time. Have a great day. Thanks for watching and goodbye.